Well, howdy, everybody. 5 Minute Fridays with Pastor Hobbs. I pray and hope that all is going well your way with your families. I also hope you've got your Christmas gift shopping done. You know, the post office is backed up a little bit, so I hope you've stamped the packages and you've sent them and you've shared your joy. You know, as Pastor David mentioned this past Sunday, gift giving is important, but let us not just give gifts to give. Let's give to make an impact and a difference. Well, today, this afternoon, I want to start off with something a little light as we are nearing the end of the Advent season. There was a preacher one time who said, we're starting a new sermon series. The topic is on lying. I want you all to go home and to read Mark 17. The following Sunday, the preacher gets up to the podium. He looks out at the congregation and he asks the question, okay, so by a show of hand, who all read Mark 17? Congregants looked at each other. They all kind of slowly put their hand up and said, yeah, it was me. You know, I read it, preacher. The pastor says, there is no Mark 17. So let's begin on a sermon series of lying. So this morning, what I want to talk about is just the importance of knowledge and the importance of reading. John Wesley said, we ought to be a man of one book, but a student of many. As we think about knowledge and we think about the acquisition of wisdom, there are so many different places that we can find this knowledge or wisdom. We can find it in different books and different topics from different genres and different authors. I mean, we can study people who are Christian and people who are non-Christian. We can look at Aristotle and Plato and some of those early Greek scholars. We can look at some of the early church fathers as Origen or Tertullian. We can even, look at some contemporary things with Nietzsche and some of the authors that are writing in our context today. We can even learn things from documentaries, that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, we ought to be a people of one book, but a student of many. I have a quote here from John Wesley. He writes, he writes, reading Christians are growing Christians. And when Christians cease to read, they cease to grow. Some of the gifts that we give over Christmas are books. Books are important for us in our growth as Christians because all truth is God's truth. If you can find truth in something, chances are it's going to point back to God. And so if you know Wesley, he actually owned over 1,000 different books. And at the time he actually wrote a book on biology. Of all things, this theologian wrote a book on biology. He was a man of many trades. And so although that may be the case, he also teaches us to beware that we aren't swallowed in these books, because an ounce of love is worth a pound of knowledge. And so, though we may be students of many books and literature, we are to be a people of only one book. And that book is this right here. The Bible is what ought to teach us and to lead us. The Bible should be alive in us. We ought to possess certain qualities about this book so that when people examine our lives and they see the way that we live, they see the way that we Christmas hard during Advent, they can wonder and question, what about that person makes them so special? And when we say the Bible, they say, you're a man or a woman of that book. Hear these words from Paul to the young preacher Timothy. He says in chapter 3 of his second letter, verse 16, every scripture is inspired by God and useful for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the person dedicated to God may be capable and equipped for every good work. Friends, there's only one book that really matters. We can be students of all, but we can only be of one. Hope to see you this Sunday at church. The youth are having s'mores outside. I'm excited. We also have a live nativity that's going to take place. Remember, we have 4 Christmas services, 2 on Adam's service, which is the 23rd, 2 on Eve's service, which is the 24th. We are Christmasing really hard here at Faith because we are in love with God. And let's be honest, we need it after a year like 2020, right? Be of one book, but a student of many. For the Christian who reads is the Christian who grows. God bless. Y'all take care.